Hello, dear everybody. My name is Dmitry, and I work for the Dmitry Nikitin School. And today we're having an exciting talk. We would love to have your cameras on if possible. We understand how hectic your lives are, and you can be somewhere with your cameras off. That's fine. But if that's possible, we would encourage you to have your cameras on. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Smile for having your cameras on. Oh, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Daria. Oh, that's lovely. I can understand when you are teaching bankers or when you are teaching security guys and they're going to tell you, no, cameras on, we are shy. But when you're teaching teachers, I mean, we are not shy, are we? We thrive on human communication. So, welcome to our kind of regular traditional talks, which are around ERConf, which is one of the most important trend-setting conferences in Russia in the ELT industry, which is going to take place in August 2023. And we are talking with ERConf plenary speakers from the last year, August 2022. And today with us is Tatьяна Fанштейn. Tatьяна gave an amazing plenary talk last year in August in Yaroslavl on creating safe places, safe spaces online for young learners and very young learners. And Tatьяна, thank you for joining us. I can understand and imagine how hectic and dynamic your life is. And Tatьяna kindly agreed to repeat the plenary again for us today. The recording will be available, and the recording will be available in our group, which is called Школа Дмитрия Никитина Учителям on VK, so you can rewatch the recording. And after the session, you'll be able to ask Tatьяна some questions. For those of you who don't know Tatьяна, Tatьяna is a teacher, an academic manager, a teacher trainer, and the owner of Tatьяна Fанштейn School of English. I love the name a lot. I love the name a lot. I think it's very clever putting your name in the name of a language school, as you might understand. We are ready now to present you with the web page of ERConf 2023, which is taking place in Yaroslavl. And at the beginning of Tatьяna's talk, I'll send a link in a chat, and at the end, I'll send a link in a chat again. Now we are selling tickets for ERConf for very, very, very early bird prices. So, Tatьяна, would you like to begin?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Let me share the screen and let me know if you can see it. I do hope that our session today is going to be interactive, so you can see it. Thanks a lot. You are going to use the chat because I would like to see you there. Thanks for switching on your cameras. And today we're going to talk about creating comfortable learning space online, choices. Before we get started, can I ask you a little question? Does any of you teach online now? Can you raise your hand, please? Yeah. All right. Thank you. So quite a lot of people. Perfect. So today I'm going to focus on teaching kids and teens, but I do hope that lots of my ideas might be applied to teaching adults as well. So off we go. Aren't we great at creating comfortable learning space offline? We definitely are. We take care of our students. We prepare them these wonderful touchy-feely flashcards. We provide them with the comfortable chairs, desks, stylish stationery, and so on. But what about online? So in March 2020, we were kind of forced to go online. And in my case, I had to start teaching very young learners online, which was quite a challenge, but gradually it started to grow on me. So I was really, and I'm still teaching them online. So we had to face a challenge, but here we are to talk about choices. conscious choices, choices that make your life easier, better, more enjoyable, and life of your students obviously as well. So before we get to the point, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm an online school owner. I'm an English teacher. I teach very young learners online in groups. I'm a parent as well. My son is learning both offline and online. And besides, I'm a learner because I'm still learning English in a group of advanced students of my own school. So I kind of look at the educational process from 4 perspectives. So today we're going to come back to it. And oops, sorry, there is some, yeah. So the plan for today is to make choices. So we will try to look gradually at different options that we can see, we can face while teaching and learning. The thing is that I'm not going to make choices for you. The thing is that perhaps, hopefully, after this session, after this talk, you will come to some new ideas how to implement these choices, these conscious choices in your teaching context. So, and first I've got a question for you. What do you see in the picture? Can you please type in the chat? So any ideas? There are no wrong answers. So we are teachers, we all know it. So what do you see in the picture? The process of growth. Thank you, Daria. Daria, thank you very much. Any other ideas? What exactly? What things? Plants. Great, thank you very much. And I've got another question. Where is it growing? So it's the process of growth. Where do you think it is? So we've got a watering can. We've got fertilizer, some kind of, well, light. So where do you think it is growing? Any ideas? Again, no wrong answers, so don't be shy. Garden. Okay, right. I see. Well, it's some kind of a garden. You might call it a garden, but in my, what I meant was a greenhouse. So we can see that the plant is taken care of. So we know when to water it, how to let it grow better. So we know a lot about this plant. What about this one? What do you see in the picture and where it is? Can you please type your answer in the chat? Exactly. So you've got the point. This is the jungle, exactly. And the conditions are completely different. So absolutely different surrounding. There is a monkey trying to pick up the plant. There is the sun shining. Perhaps there are other plants growing. So we don't know whether it's going to be picked up or not. So how many things for how much water it will get. So we don't know anything. What about here? What do you see here and where do you think it's happening? Can you please type your answer in the chat? School, right? So what's happening in the picture? Classroom? Dmitry in the classroom, okay. All right, reading, yeah, some kind of learning in the classroom, exactly. So, and I would call it kind of greenhouse. When everything is set, the boy, let's call him Dmitry, okay, if you like. So he's learning something in a kind of greenhouse. So everything is set. We know what to give him, what he's able to do, what he's allowed, what he's not allowed to do. So everything is kind of set. What about here? What do you see in the picture and where it is happening? Yeah. So it's obviously educational process, interrupted at times by parents, by some sounds, by whatever happening, by actually life. happening in this boy's surrounding. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is online learning. This is home. There is probably TV on. So mom passing by with the delicious smell of the cake. So some pets sitting on the boy's lap and, well, some food. So lots and lots of distractors. So life happening there. And it is believed to be a jungle in some way, in some kind of meaning. So I came up with this metaphor. I was inspired by Richard Cordwell. So if you are interested in listening to coding, you might Google this name if you're not familiar with him yet. He's a great speaker and a scientist. So what I mean by this metaphor is that when we set everything for our students, when we decide everything for our students, it's a kind of a greenhouse. I remember this very well because I had been teaching for years before my March 2020 came offline, kids offline. So everything is set. Kids kind of come to your classroom. Students of any age come to your classroom. What I did have was, this parking box where they had to leave their belongings, their personal belongings, possessions, just in order not to get them distracted. So they left their toys, mobile phones, whatever that could distract them, and they came into my classroom. I used to teach them, kind of inject them with this, teaching, ideas, beliefs, and motivation. They didn't have any kind of choice. They had to take it because they were surrounded by everything chosen by me. In another situation is definitely, I see it now from the different angle when we look at teaching online. Teaching online is seen by me more like a jungle because it is really what is happening in our everyday lives. So something can happen. Well, people can get distracted. The children can just do something unexpectedly and you, surprise, surprise, can't physically reach them. I remember having sore throat on my very first lessons while teaching online because of this, intense feeling that I can't change anything. What if a student leaves? So me, as such an experienced teacher who can deal with any kind of classroom management problem or difficulty, and there is a kid I can't reach and I can actually do nothing about. The most depressing moment of my teaching career was the following. When I was teaching my wonderful 5-year-old group of kids, and there was this, one empty window. So there were kind of 5 involved, wonderful students eager to participate and do whatever I was asking them to, and one person missing. What was I supposed to do? So did I have to start tearing out my hair and blaming myself for being an awful teacher, or somehow deal with it? That's the choice I had to face. And that's the choice we all face while teaching online. So the key ideas of my talk today is definitely that we are people who choose greenhouse or a jungle. We all face a lot of choices, and there are no right and wrong answers. There is no one-fits-all solution or approach here. Everybody knows the best. So let's make our choices. And I've got the first pair of choices for you. Perhaps kind of tricky one, to involve students or let them learn at their own pace. So, and first of all, I've got a question for you. Do you think 100 involvement exists? Can you please type your answers in the chat? Yes, no? Rarely, but it still does, exists. Interesting. Okay, now I've got another question for you. How much do you think you are involved now? Can you just type the % of your involvement now? Let's see the rating. 8.99. Alexandra, I'm really flattered. Are you sure? Okay, let's see. I'm so flattered. So it's first time in my life when I've got a student involved 99%. Wonderful, amazing. So any other numbers? How much do you think you are involved? If your number is lower than, I don't know, 50, it's absolutely fine. It's okay. I can deal with it. So it's not a problem. 90, very, very high. You appreciate me a lot. Thank you so much. I don't know why, but for some reason, I don't believe you. The thing is that I've done quite a few polls on involvement, and the usual rating differs from 50 to 60. So if my students are involved up to 60%, it's great success. Perhaps you might disagree with me here, but let us just be human. So now, while listening to me, pay attention to your body. So to the way you sit, to the way you listen to me. Perhaps something is happening inside your body with your body position, like you're perhaps trying to find a better and more comfortable place. Or probably it's just better to stretch now or do something about your body. So you might be a little focused on your physical comfort. Or perhaps you are digesting some information you've just got before the session started. Or perhaps you're planning some wonderful lunch after the session, or you're thinking about your evening plans. So it's absolutely human when you're thinking about lots and lots and lots of different things. Multitasking is absolutely fine. So if you ask me, my choice is not to require my students 99% of involvement, or even 80 is very, very high. So if they are involved like 60%, I'm really satisfied. So it's absolutely fine for me. So my choice here is let my students work and be involved as much or as little, attention, as little as they want to, because it can't be, you know, all the time involvement. So, and please, teeny-weeny task for you now. Can you please focus on your involvement, how much you are involved now, and how much you will be involved like in 20 minutes, and how much you will be involved at the end of my talk. So just look at the number, just look at the curve, and let's pay attention to it. Besides, I find it really fascinating to see how students can come back and be involved on their own, surprise, surprise, without me forcing them to listen to me. So if I let them distract, if I let them do what they are really eager to do, they definitely come back to me. If they are motivated, if they are interested, and if I do something, well, really good for them, they will come back to me. And by the way, this is a faster way of learning how to concentrate on something, how to focus on something, while talking of students of any age, not necessarily very young learners, teenagers, and even adults, by the way. So I can definitely help my students get to know their pace, because it's really important for learning. For instance, if you ask me, I'm a very, very slow learner. So when I got to know it, my life became much, much easier and better, because I kind of accepted that I'm a slow learner. So I didn't expect from myself to learn something fast. And it was really, now it's really nice and much more enjoyable to continue learning, knowing that I'm quite a slow learner. And definitely let all kind of learners feel at ease, no matter how much they are or how little they are involved. What about these kind of choices? To follow the syllabus or work on practical skills? You might be thinking like, Tatьяна, what on earth are you asking about? Of course, we have to practice, or we have to work on practical skills. But I've got a question for you about practical skills for a student or practical skills for a teacher. Do you think we always know what our students mean by practical skills? Do you think giving talks at conferences is quite a practical skill? Yeah, no? Can you just nod if you do? or put a plus in the chat. Do you think it is kind of practical? Is it a practical skill for an adult student? Yes, no? No, depends. Yes, my favorite answer is it depends. It definitely does. Okay, right. If you ask me as a student, this is my practical skill. So this is the skill I had been learning English for years, to be able to give talks at conferences and webinars, whatever. Before I started the course I'm doing now. So it is a practical skill. What about such a skill as chatting a girl up in a bar? Do you think it's practical? Yes, no? It definitely looks like a practical skill to me. In the beginning of my career, I was teaching Russian for foreigners, and I had an American guy, student, who started a Russian course with me. First, we started just learning some kind of Russian because he had just moved to Russia. But then he came up to me and started saying that, Tanya, don't even bother teaching me this structure or vocab if I'm not going to use it to chat a girl up in a bar. Because the aim of my learning, the whole aim of my learning, came to the idea that I want to chat up girls in a bar. That's the aim. So that's it. And so we had to somehow change our aims, our original aims of the course, so to be able to live up to his expectations. What about such a skill for kids, counting to 100? If we talk about, well, let's say very young learners, A1 level, do you think it's very practical? Yes or no? Can you type in the chat, please? Counting to 100 if they are very, very beginners. For kids, yes, to 100. No. Well, again, it depends. It depends. But if you ask me, as a teacher of very young learners, I wouldn't teach my students first to count to 100 in the very first lessons, like, I don't know, like for half a year. I think they don't need such big numbers when they are 5, so there is no reason to do it. But I've got a son, and I'm a parent, so he's learning French. And when he started learning French, the first thing he did was learning how to count to 100. And it was, and it still is, a very practical skill for him. Why? Because it's just a chance for him to brag among his peers, you know, coming up to his peers and friends and saying, you know what, I can count to 100 in French. Can you do that? So it is obviously a very practical skill for him, especially if you speak French, or if you know French, you know how difficult, how challenging it is. Like to say 99 would be 99, which is 4 multiply 20, add 10 at 9. So it's weird and sounds a bit insane, but still, for a kid like him, just to show off is a really good reason to learn this skill. So before we move on, we have to, well, as a teacher, have to understand what really a practical skill means for my particular students. So my choice here is obviously get to know their real learning and life context and needs, which can change, and follow the changes. Now I've got a question for, well, very tricky one for teachers of kids. So what about parents? Do you think it's necessary? Which is better? Encourage parents' help or manage without them? What's your choice? How much do you involve parents in learning process? Can you just type in the chat, yes, no, encourage or not encourage, or manage without them? They need to be involved, you think? Without, I see. Yeah. Depends. Yeah, it depends. Obviously, it does. So I've got another kind of question for you. Do you think parents are assistants of kids or are they real participants of the educational process? That's a question to mull over, to think of. And we have quite a couple of choices here. Do we have to let parents stay in your lessons or make them leave? That's a good question, because when I was working offline, I was asking, obviously, all the parents of all the kids to leave, because there was kind of limited space, and I wanted to build up the relationship, the rapport with the student directly without parents helping and interfering. But there can be exceptions. I remember teaching a boy for about 4 years or something, whose zone of comfort was included his mom. When he was able to see her. So as soon as she went out, he was really nervous. And it was like his kind of particular feature. So I had to take it into consideration and bear it in mind. So all these 4 years I was teaching him, she was there in the classroom, every single lesson, and it was absolutely fine. So she didn't distract anyone, she just was staying there all the time. What about such a question as, do we have to let parents help or let them learn without them? Yeah, it's a triangle, student, parent, and teacher, exactly. But what about the lesson itself? Do you have to have this triangle every single lesson, or do you usually force parents leave? Do you involve parents in lesson preparation or let them live their own lives? So if you ask me as a parent, I would love to be involved, the least the better. So the less the better. So for me, the ideal lesson of my son is definitely when I'm not involved at all. So I would like the teacher build the communication with my son directly without my participation at all. But there can be different situations. For example, I've got a girl whose relationship with her mother includes involving mother every single time a girl faces any kind of problem. I was really shocked when I first faced it, when the girl staying at a lesson, sitting in a comfortable way, just having a chat with me, and then she started yelling at the top of her lungs, something like that, just because she couldn't draw something. And the mom was there ready, running, rushing up to her and starting draw something for her, like, what would you like? This, okay, so I'll do it now. And it was really like a habitual process. So in such cases, we have to know what we can change and what we can influence on. But gradually we can work on it. And again, here we face choices. So we can just let them leave at their own, let them stay in their own comfortable relationship, or we can somehow work on it together. So gradually I started to give feedback to the girl, to underline, to focus on things that she's able to do without her mom. So every single lesson we focused on that. I dragged her attention, like, look, you are able to do this and this and this without your mom. How great you are. So, okay, great. Can you maybe another time try to do something else without your mom? So it's wonderful. So, and gradually we started to work on it. All three of us, definitely. Parent, me, and the girl. So my choice here is definitely focus on my students' real context and need, let them manage without parents. And if I have to, ask them, students, to prepare some kind of realia for the class. As I teach online, my students need to get some kind of offline material. So I send the list in advance, as you can see on the screen. And I encourage and motivate my students to collect it themselves. So they do have this, kind of English box where they keep all the realia for the classroom. And gradually, I encourage them to collect these things themselves if they can. And this is really convenient for the parent. And gradually they start doing it, and they start kind of preparing and being more involved in the educational process than they would be if it hadn't happened. What about emergent language? So do we have to work on planned vocabulary or emergent language? You can write your answers in the chat, but I'm pretty sure if you're teaching adults, you're perhaps familiar with the idea of working on emergent language. But probably if you're teaching kids, you face some difficulties with it, because usually for some reason, teachers of kids are kind of, well, scared or not so worried, when working with emergent language. So do we have to focus on the course book or use the vocabulary from our students? That's a question. Let's take a look at very good book, the book I use, the course book I love, Super Safari 3, and the vocab they provide our students with. So the topic is toys. The age of students is 6 or 7 years old. Do you think the number of vocab is relevant to this age? Can you just nod or put a plus in the chat box if you think it is? Because look, there are such words as like doll, teddy bear, rope, kite, ball, plane. Do you think it's relevant for modern kids of 6 or 7 years old? Perhaps kite, not really. You know what? When I started teaching this unit with my students, some of them didn't know what a rope is. Well, somebody perhaps doesn't know a kite, or, well, it depends again. And I've got a question for you. Do you know what this thing is called? Do you know what this is? Can you type in the chat, please? No idea? If you have no idea, just let me know. Does anybody know what this beast is? Kind of robot, you're right. Actually, it's called a screecher. Yeah, it's a kind of transformer. You're right. You're genius. Thank you. Because I had no idea when my student brought it to the class, especially when you work online, he like shows you something and you're like, what is it? Can you show it properly? And they usually know where the camera is, but they put it like this, so you can see, of course, whatever it is. So it's quite a problem. What about this one? Do you have any ideas what this is? It's also one of the toys my students brought into the classroom. No idea, but you can guess. Here it's much easier to get. A unicorn, obviously, it's a unicorn. So, but it's not just a unicorn, it's a rarity rainbow butterfly unicorn. So just to train your pronunciation right now, you might try to say it like all together, rarity rainbow butterfly unicorn, because all the group of my very young learners know it by heart, because every single time we talk about toys, or we don't talk about toys, we don't talk about anything, she just shows it and repeats this all, collocation. So we've learned it very well, and we can practice our pronunciation while working with it. Yeah, modern trends, exactly. What about this one? You obviously know what this is. They also bring it into the classroom. Besides, our students might bring something into the classroom like stories. And it is very, very personal. I remember when I was teaching, also in the beginning of my career, I was teaching a student who was elementary and adult students. And once we were talking about past simple, we started studying past simple, and we were talking about family, she burst into tears. When she started crying, I didn't know what to do. And the thing was that her dad had passed away some years ago. And before that, when we were talking about the family, she spoke about him in present tense because she couldn't accept this. And when students bring such personal stories, it's kind of emergent language we have to work on. And well, in my case, we have to, support our students and work with their emotions. So my choice here is definitely learn about our students' life needs, and here be more a human than a teacher. It really matters. And I've got another question for you, which might seem to be a bit weird. Teaching for now or teaching for the future? Yeah, you're right. The student of yours brought the rainbow butterfly unicorn. Cool. Yeah, they are on the same page. Cool. Teach for the future and teach for now. You think both. Thank you, Olga, for your opinion. Actually, perhaps there is something to think of here in this position, because when we teach adults, we usually teach them for some close future, so some near future, because when they come to us, they're kind of aware of the aims of the purpose, why they are here. Perhaps we are preparing them for the interview, for the job interview, or they want to go abroad, or they just want to do it for pleasure. So they kind of know what they need it for, and it's some kind of near future. For some reason, while teaching kids, there is a tendency of preparing them for some kind of distant future. When you teach very young learners, you perhaps might be preparing them for school because you don't want them to face some challenges the school program gives them. When they are young learners, you prepare them for YEGE and OGE. After YEGE and OGE, you might be preparing them for IELTS or something. And it's like non-stop preparation for some future, distant, wonderful life. But what if this life is not going to happen? I learned it in a bitter way, and I've got a bitter example here because a couple of years ago, my student, my very young learner, passed away in a car crash. And it got me thinking about lots and lots of things. Was I focusing enough on the now, on the moment, or was I preparing her for some distant future which will never happen to her? And am I still now preparing my students for something which cannot happen? So my choice is obviously teaching for now, because we never know what happens in the future, and there are a lot of ways we can do it. Like, there are quite a few options. We definitely are familiar with CLIL approach when we use our language to teach other life skills. As for the salad, I do teach my kids how to make salad or how to make sandwich and speak English while doing it. We can focus on some tech skills because a lot of kids of different ages don't know where the camera is and how to share the screen. We do teach emotional intelligence, memory operation, communication, collaboration, and lots of other things. And here we also face a lot of choices, like, do we have to focus on these particular skills, or do we teach English only, separately from anything else? For example, while teaching kids how to be patient and how to just put up your hand if you want to say something and don't butt in, we've got options. So we can just mute them, especially online. It's very easy. You can just mute a noisy student, or you can gradually help a student learn how to work on it. Like, give the student some feedback, talk about it, and gradually let the student learn. So how much he interferes, how much he interrupts, what other people really feel when they are interrupted, what he or she feels when they are interrupted. And one more skill which I really love to teach is definitely listening to yourself. Now you might be thinking, Tatiana, what do you mean by listening to yourself? Such a trendy collocation, isn't it? Weird. Listen to the teacher or listen to yourself. What a weird opposition. Well, it might seem weird, but I would like to come up with some example here. By the way, coming back to the attention and involvement, how much do you think you are involved now? Do you think you are still involved, those of you who wrote 99% or 80%, or like, are you still there, like 99 or less involved? So thank you for being honest. So you can just type like 50% involved. Okay, very human. Yeah, I accept it. Thank you very much. So to be involved more, can I just kindly ask you to stand up Can you please, everybody, stand up in front of your cameras? Yeah, I would like to see you standing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And yeah, we can see you. Thank you very much. And can you please clap your hands? Can you clap your hands? Thanks a lot. Can you stretch up? Example, yeah, physical exercise is good for you. Thank you. Can you turn around? Thank you. And can you sit down? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Now I've got another question for you. Can you stand up if you want? Can you stand up if you want? So I do want to stand up, so I will. So that's a different story. Can you clap your hands if you want? I don't feel like clapping my hands, no. Can you stretch if you want? Thank you. And can you sit down if you want? So that's what I mean by saying choosing my English teacher or choosing my body. That's a very, well, rough position, I would say. So don't make your students choose you instead of choosing your body, their body. So when it really feels like moving, they can move. When it doesn't, you can use it in your own purpose. Just let them speak. So I let my students listen to themselves. I always add this, if you want component, and it gives me a lot of material and a lot of opportunities for my students to speak. So there are quite a few structures they might learn while doing it, like saying, I'm not clapping my hands, or I don't want to, or even I'm not in the mood. So whatever you want to learn can be learned in this way. And it's a very helpful thing, if you ask me. So one more choice, which is quite obvious, but still, to eat or not to eat in a lesson. So if we talk about educational process, about the lesson, can you please type your answers in the chat box? What's your choice? What's your choice? To eat or not to eat during your lesson? So no wrong answers. If online, okay. And if offline, so do you think eating offline is worse than eating online? Why? Interesting. Because if you ask mass, well, and how does mass online differs from mass offline? Does it really differ? So it depends. It depends. Exactly. If you are hungry, why not? Yes, I also teach groups. And I used to teach them offline and online, and eating is a very, very good option, if you ask me. So every time we have a lesson, I choose not a hungry student, I choose a satisfied and full student. And this kind of activity, which is a snack activity, you can call it just snack or snack activity, it can be actually applied to any age and level. So like if you're hungry, you can grab something and ask your student to grab something edible, or ask your students, as I do, ask your students just to prepare a snack. Yeah, teenagers are always hungry. It works really well with teens as well. Exactly. So they just prepare something they are going to eat during a lesson, a drink and something for a snack. So that's what they prepare. It's kind of respect to my body needs, because sometimes when I start my lesson, I'm really hungry. So, and my students ask me, Tatiana, how are you? I say, you know what? I'm hungry. And then everybody starts saying, yeah, I'm hungry too. Okay, so let's have snack now. So it's time for a snack. It can be, we can have a snack in the beginning of the lesson, at the end of the lesson, in the middle of the lesson. So whenever it's necessary. So these are definitely skills for here and now to talk about food, to have a meaningful communication while eating. It's kind of shared responsibilities if you teach online, because they bring the food. So you don't have to care about anything. It's a lot of emergent language, and it's definitely extra opportunities for speaking. For some reason, teachers usually here ask me, and don't students choke? No, they don't. They are able to eat, and speak, because it's a very natural skill. If you ask me, while having dinner or lunch or whatever, just have a chat. So they don't choke, they are humans. They will deal with it, don't worry. So my choice is definitely every single lesson, let my students eat and eat myself. And it's a great source for speaking, for learning, and for building a rapport with my students, for creating this comfortable space, whether you are teaching offline or online. What about such a question? Use English only or English plus bits of Russian? Do you use English only or do you use Russian at times when necessary? Can you type in the chat, please? It depends, I know, but still. Bits of Russian, thank you, thank you. So actually, there are lots of questions here. Russian when needed. So there are teachers who stick to English classroom only, or there are teachers who let themselves jump in with bits of Russian when necessary. But, well, a lot of teachers see themselves as a lazy or non-professional teacher using Russian. Or can we admit that there are situations which can't be sorted out in English only, especially if you are teaching novices, if you are teaching very young learners or just A1 students? I remember having a situation with a girl teaching a group, and a girl who was younger than all the group. The group was 5, she was 4, and we started our lesson with a talk like this, like, "How are you, Christina?" "I'm not fine." Then I ask, and I see that she's not fine, so I ask her why. And she said, "А меня мама только что побила." And she burst into tears and she starts crying. And everybody starts like staring at her and nobody knows what to do. So am I supposed to pull myself together and continue, come back to the lesson, stick to the plan, and continue speaking English? Or can I provide her with necessary support? She's in a desperate need of at this very moment. So this is the choice. My choice here is definitely use English only during the lesson with bits of Russian if necessary, like in such cases, and use Russian before and after the class. We usually speak Russian before the class. They tell me, they report me the news or what is happening to them or how they feel. And after the class, we definitely have this feedback, well, little feedback sessions when we discuss what happened in the class, how it was, how difficult it was. As for the feedback, there is another question: feedback from the teacher or feedback from students? Again, you might be thinking, well, there definitely should be feedback from the teacher and from the students, of course, no doubt about that. But let's look at it a little deeper. I would like to draw your attention to the idea that we usually some kind of expect positive feedback. I'm not sure if you agree with me. Can you just write your ideas in the chat? But I might suggest that we kind of expect our students to give some positive feedback, because especially when teaching kids, we start asking them something like, "Okay, did you like my lesson?" So if you ask like this, perhaps you're expecting them to say, "Yeah, sure, we did." So yeah, you're right. Every feedback is great for work, but let's pay attention to the way you ask for it, especially while working with kids. So if I ask you, "Well, dear colleagues, do you like my talk?" So can you just type me in the chat, "No, Tatьяна, you're awful. So you're saying some silly, rubbish things." So it's pretty difficult, isn't it? So when we talk about negative feedback, my choice is obviously to let my students understand what they really feel and help them. My kind of help includes paper and pen when I take notes while teaching. And at the end of the lesson, after we finish this mini feedback sessions, we talk to each other, and I can say that, "You know what, I spotted that it was quite difficult for you, or you felt frustrated or irritated here, and we can talk about it." So my notes during the lesson help me a lot. And it helps remember my students what they really felt and provide them with a room for real negative feedback when they didn't like something. Especially you are a kid. When you are a kid, Adults always expect you to say, yes, everything is great. I really love it. So please bear it in mind. And the last question here, be sincere or wear a happy mask. So you can type your answers in the chat. I remember being asked by one of the teachers, participants of my courses, like, Tatiana, what if I don't feel like smiling today? I have to teach. So, but what am I supposed to do if I don't feel like smiling? What if your child has just thrown a tantrum in a shop? Or what if you've got some bad news from your family? Do you have to force yourself to smile and continue having a lesson like this? I'm not really sure. So in my point of view, in my world, the more sincere we are, the better. So, and we can really benefit, and our students can really benefit from this approach. I remember I've got a friend who is a teacher, and I remember she told me about one of the best lessons she has ever had as a student, which was when her teacher started crying in a lesson because they started a small talk. They started talking to each other in a usual way, and when the student, my friend, asked the teacher how she felt, she was sincere, and she said that her daughter was being bullied by her classmates, and she was really lost. She didn't really know what to do, and she burst into tears. And my friend said that she used all she might to give support to the teacher, and it was one of the best lessons ever because she learned really a lot, and she was able to use this particular vocabulary in the future very well because it came with emotions. So the choice is up to us. So being sincere can bring us new opportunities to learn new kind of language or support. It builds a better rapport, and it focuses on more being a human than a teaching machine. So my choice is obviously to be more human than a teaching machine. And I like the idea of Mr. Dumbledore, who says that this is our choices, what we truly are, far more than our possibilities. So here we are with our conscious choices and with the choices which our students make. And my choice is definitely to live in the jungle, to stop looking for one-fits-all solution or approach, and to let my students make their own choices and make my students' choices as well. And this is the way I create comfortable learning space. And it doesn't matter if you're working offline or online. That's it. I was really glad to see you being involved, even sometimes 99% of involvement. And thank you for listening to me. Thank you for having me here. And I'm ready to answer all of your questions. You can type them in the chat, or you can switch on the sound, unmute yourself.
Talk, yeah. I think. Thank you,
yeah.
Tatiana, for this inspiring, thought-provoking talk. I have a question to Alexandra. I think, where does the 1% go? Yeah.
Just distract very small things happening around me, just background here. Okay, so you're like
very strong with your 99%.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be organized, and I have to tell you, according to the script I have, which was given to me, that Tatiana has already applied for YARConf conference in Yaroslavl, and very, very early bird prizes are available, and they have to put it on a web chat. I mean, I don't have to, I want to share invitation to YARConf with you. Any questions to Tatiana, dear ladies, and a very, very few gentlemen?
I don't have a question, but I'm really thankful for the idea of feedback, something like when something goes pear-shaped, okay, so you can look at your notes, and after that you can address to the students with the problems, and just, I noticed that you didn't like it, and let's discuss how to help you with the stuff. I think, yeah, it's really precious. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Karen.
Yeah. I was going to say that I love this, idea of teaching diary. So first we make notes, and then I take a couple of minutes and just take notes in the teaching diary, and it's very convenient to compare like what happened in this lesson, like in a month, and so on. So I like taking notes.
I run quite a lot of activities if you want to, and with teachers. And in Novosibirsk, I had like 250 teachers doing this activity with them, and that's also very inspiring to understand what it means to give this choice. Stand up if you want to. And I think in Yaroslav last year, Tatiana gave us an example: touch your partner's nose if you want to. And if you give an instruction to teachers, touch your partner's nose, you can see fear at some of the faces. And then if you say, if you want to, you see relief. So that's quite a nice activity, I guess, with adults as well, especially with adults, I would say, because 55-year-old bankers do not want to imagine they're monkeys.
Yeah, exactly.
So any more questions? We have time for one question. If no, thank you, Tatiana, for coming. We appreciate your plenary talk one more time. Again, if you want to rewatch it again in a couple of days or in a week, well, at some point, we aim at a couple of days. The recording will be available at our group on VK, Школа Двитrekitным Учителям. And now could we give some feedback to Tatiana on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely that you will recommend Tatiana's talk or Tatiana's course to your friend or relative or colleague? From 1 to 10, could you show us?
Thank you.
That's called NPS. You can Google the NPS strategies, by the way, and use it with your learners. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your time. Thank you for your cameras on. That's always a special pleasure for the speaker. And Tatiana, would you like to say goodbye? And then I say goodbye and we close there.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. So I was very glad to see you. So have wonderful lessons and enjoy your teaching. Thank you and goodbye.
And always remember how wonderful you are. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Tatiana, you may stay here for a while.